can you tax the rich? No, there aren't enough of them. We could tax the rich and forget about their income. Let's go whole hog. Let's take their entire wealth, which first off is unconstitutional. But suppose we took it anyway, which we're not going to. But suppose we did, and suppose that they could get full price on the assets that we take. So all of Jeff Bezos' stock, he cashes it in and he gets $1 for every dollar's worth of stock, and the IRS takes it, which that isn't going to happen either, because there's no way that if the rich cashed out their assets, they get anywhere near market value. But nonetheless, let's take this extreme hypothetical case that we tax the rich, we tax all of their wealth, 100% of it, and we get full market value off of it. We will collect about $3 trillion.
That's it?
That's it. The federal budget this year, I believe, is $6. So we would collect enough money to fund the federal government for, about 6 months, 9 months, something like that. And let me walk back what I just said, because all of that I described was not the rich. It was specifically billionaires, specifically billionaires. But nonetheless, you throw in all the rest of the 1% and you do get a bigger number, but it's not that much bigger, right? We're talking, take a guess, 5 trillion maybe. But notice what you've done. If we did do that, you now no longer have the 1%. You no longer have billionaires. What are we going to do next year? Because we got to collect money again next year. So we turn to other people. And I think politicians have realized this. What they have realized is, or maybe they knew it already, they're now becoming bold enough that they could start to act on it, is that the middle class and the upper middle class actually have more income, about twice as much income as the 1%.
Oh, collectively, altogether.
Collectively.
I can see that.
The upper middle class have twice as much income
because there's way more people.
1%. Because yes, what we lack in income, we more than make up for in people. Right. And the middle class and the upper middle class are taxed at relatively low rates at the federal level. The middle class is roughly around 13%. The upper middle class is roughly around 16%, versus the 1% is at 32%. Damn. So politicians are seeing us as this great untapped resource, and they're going to start coming for us because that's where the money is. Now, you start to see this in things like President Biden's tax plan. And President Biden was saying, he and his supporters kept saying the same thing over and over again. This is a capital gains tax, and it's a capital gains tax on the rich. If you look at the details, it turns out that although it is technically a capital gains tax, it acts and talks and walks exactly like a death tax, an estate tax. And furthermore, it's aimed, given the numbers, at the upper middle class.
What's a death tax?
So it's a death tax. It's an estate tax. Now, there's all, when people say things like, "Oh my God, if you hit a farmer with this thing, he's going to owe all these taxes. He's going to have to close his farm." And so the Biden camp writes in, little waivers saying, well, if you're a farmer, provided your children continue to run the farm, you can defer the tax. Not that you're exempt from it. You can defer it until you stop farming, then you owe it.
Whoa. And so if you defer it for 30 years, would you pay
you're just going to end up owing more. Right. Yeah, exactly. But what's happening here is this so-called capital gains tax on the rich that's actually a death tax on the middle class. What it's going to do, it's going to hit hard small business owners, farmers, of course, because you've got a company, you do marketing, you have clients. Right. Now, you probably don't have lots of assets doing that, but you could imagine a small business like yours that did have lots of assets. Maybe it had some machinery, a building, whatever. It's very easy for a small business to be worth enough on paper to trigger that tax without generating income.
Wow.
I mean, not without generating lots of income. So you can have, let's say $2 million in assets, and those $2 million in assets generate a decent middle-class income for you and for maybe a dozen employees, and that's it. So when you die and you leave that business to your kids, under Joe Biden's plan, your kids owe tax on that immediately on the market value of those assets.